Now that the World Cup has officially ended with some brilliant moments, some horrible moments, and just loads of brilliant moments from the World Cup in general, I'm going to go through the entire 32 team roster from the World Cup and pick the best player from each team. So without further ado, let's get into it, and remember to like, comment and subscribe as well.
Qatar, Mohamed Muntari.
Oh dear, Qatar. This really was pick the best of a bad bunch. The worst ever hosts of a World Cup. So for me, I just went for their only goal scorer, Muntari. He got one goal against Senegal, and that's pretty much the only highlight of the tournament for Qatar.
The Netherlands, Cody Gakpo.
Next up is the Netherlands, and for me, quite an obvious pick, a standout player for them. Absolutely electric going forward, had a great duo with Depay, and he was definitely the best player for the Netherlands, scoring I think 3, maybe 4 goals in total, and what a player he's going to be in the future with a big move surely incoming, an absolute baller.
Senegal, Koulibaly.
With Sadio Mane injured, Koulibaly was definitely the next best team in that Senegal squad, and he did not fail to disappoint. Looked solid in every single group game, and when it came to the clutch time against Ecuador, he scores a volley for a centre-back, by the way, which is incredible. That puts Senegal through, a real captain fantastic for his nation.
Ecuador, Enner Valencia.
A man who took the World Cup by storm in the group stages. Valencia ended up with 3 goals, looked absolutely electric against Qatar, was robbed of a hat-trick and was honestly one of the best players in the whole group stage. Looked absolutely brilliant, and he was definitely Ecuador's main man in this game, despite Caicedo and Estupiñán also looking good.
England, Jude Bellingham.
The young guns really were a highlight for England at the World Cup, with players like Bellingham and Saka both impressing, with Foden also looking decent. But for me, Bellingham was the standout, got us the first goal against Iran, which really was the catalyst for a complete demolition of them. And honestly, Bellingham, he can do it all: shooting, passing, dribbling, tackling. He's got it all, and he is definitely a future world star who is the world at his feet.
Iran, Ramin Rezaein.
The Iranian left back was a standout of the group stages for me this tournament. He was energetic, he got up and down, he was very aggressive as well, which you don't normally see a lot nowadays, and you love to see those type of tackles being made. And he also got a goal against the USA, I believe. That was vital for them. Well, no, it wasn't against USA, it was against Wales, but he was good in all those games. Wales, USA, even England, he was an aggressive player and definitely showed a bit of fight out of all the Iran players. So he was definitely a good left back this tournament, and probably Iran's best player in my opinion.
Wales, Ethan Ampadu.
Now for Wales, it was another case of picking the best of a bad bunch, with starman Bale looking really poor throughout the tournament. So for me, I've gone through maybe not the technically best on the pitch, but a player who had desire, passion and a very high work rate and ran himself into the ground the whole tournament. Ethan Ampadu. He was disruptive to the other team's attacks and did what he had to do.
USA, Musa.
For America, I can imagine lots of people would either pick Pulisic or Musa's midfield partner, Tyler Adams, but for me, Musa did look the most impressive. He was powerful, he was direct, he was creative, and he looked technically good on the ball. He had everything you want in a centre midfielder, and he's definitely one for the future, considering he's so young as well and looks so composed in the middle of the park for the USA already.
Argentina, Lionel Messi.
I mean, this is just obvious. He won the Golden Ball. He's officially the best. Next,
Poland, Szczesny.
Now for an incredibly dull Poland team. He didn't even deserve to go through to the round of 16. So for me, their best player, Lewandowski, looked off it. He only scored a penalty, I think, didn't do anything else. But Szczesny is what kept them in the tournament in the first place, with so many saves. I think 2, maybe 3 penalties by the end of the tournament. What a goalkeeper he is and was. I mean, he's the heir to Buffon at Juventus, and you've got to be a decent keeper to be doing that.
Saudi Arabia, Al Dossari.
Saudi Arabia, it really is just a pick from the first game against Argentina, who I think was the best player in that game, because they didn't look good in any of the other games, but that first game against Argentina, they were energetic and utterly brilliant. And for me, I'm going to go for Al Dossari because he was the captain, I believe, and he also scored that brilliant goal that made Argentina lose in the end, although that didn't really affect Argentina overall.
Mexico, Chavez.
The team that deserved to go through instead of Poland, so energetic and exciting, although apart from against Poland and Saudi Arabia, against Argentina basically they looked like a very good team, and they did look good against Saudi Arabia. But for me, it's going to be Chavez because he scored that absolute wonder goal of a free kick, and Honestly, the other players that you expect to do well for Mexico, like Lozano, just weren't clinical enough for their forward positions, and I would argue that Chavez performed the best. He was also energetic and aggressive in his overall midfield play.
Denmark, Højbjerg.
Denmark, probably the letdowns of the tournament, and arguably none of them deserve to be in here. However, at a push, I'd put Højbjerg in there because he kept the ball moving, he had some good play, good midfield defensive play, and also got involved with the attacking a bit. And in a poor Denmark side, I'd probably say he looked the best.
France, Kylian Mbappe.
Just like Lionel Messi for Argentina, Mbappe for France is another obvious pick. I mean, he won the Golden Boot and he's also level for Pelé on total World Cup goals at just 23 and only 2 World Cup tournaments. What a player Mbappe is.
Tunisia, Aymen Darman.
Tunisia were a defensive rock this tournament, so it has to be either defence or goalkeepers. And looking at the match ratings given out, I've gone for the goalkeepers. He had a high rating every game, and I remember watching him and he did look solid pretty much every game. Not a single mistake as far as I can think of from the keeper. So for me, Tunisia's best player.
Australia, Suter.
Absolute man mountain, Harry Suter, a behemoth at the rock of Australia's defence, and what a tournament he had. He was winning every header, could hear his name every single time a ball was crossed into the box, and just was a great foundation for Australia to build on for their really amazing tournament this year.
Costa Rica, Keylor Navas.
Now, I know this might sound crazy considering this goalkeeper that conceded 11 in just 3 games at the tournament, and I know he conceded 7 in 1 match against Spain, but we've then got to remember that's also the defence's fault. Costa Rica didn't go forward either, so I'm still going to go for Navas because against Japan he was absolutely insane, and he also had a pretty good performance against Germany, who had so many shots. He managed to keep most of them out. It's impressive he only conceded 4 in that game, really. So for me, Keylor Navas, Costa Rica's best player at Qatar 2022.
Japan, Ito.
Really impressive tournament for Japan that saw them get through their group of death with both Spain and Germany, beating both of them, yet somehow losing to Costa Rica on the way. A bit of a weird one there, and although we had great players like Maeda up front, Tanaka and Kamada in the midfield, I've gone for one of their wingers, Ito. He looked dangerous getting in behind. We saw it against Germany, where he scored the winner, the exact places, making all tournament, getting down out the wing, and then just dribbling with his pace at the defenders and just getting in and looking dangerous all round. So Japan's best player for me was Ito.
Germany, Musiala.
While part of me is tempted to go for Volkrug for the great effect he had as a sub on a poor German side, he did look good when he came on. I am, however, going to go for the young star, Jamal Musiala, because he was the most creative player. He was the only one who looked like he wanted the ball, anyone who was dribbling at people, who looked positive in his play. So for me, Musiala, despite maybe not having the end product he would have liked in the end, was Germany's best player.
Spain, Gavi.
Spain's only good game, real good game of the tournament, came against Costa Rica with the 7-0 hammering. And for me, the best player in that game was Gavi, and throughout the tournament, even when they weren't playing as well, he always looked like he wanted to get the ball and dribble and beat people. Despite looking a bit lightweight at times, he was definitely their best player, although I mentioned should go out to Pedri, who looks brilliant pretty much any time he plays, let alone for Spain, where he always looks good as well.
Belgium, Onana.
Just like Denmark, Belgium were big letdowns of the tournament. However, a man who once broke into the team stood out was Onana. He looked powerful, he looked strong in the midfield, he was winning headers with using his height to his advantage, and I do think he was probably their best player, although at times he probably wasn't the best on the ball. But out of a poor Belgium side, he was a player that stood out to a certain degree.
Canada, Alphonso Davies.
Canada side who were unlucky to finish bottom of their group after looking energetic and were led by a sometimes unplayable Alphonso Davies of Bayern Munich. He looked brilliant in his further forward role for Canada, and he did miss a penalty in the first game, but then redeemed himself in the next. And honestly, that Canada side didn't deserve to finish bottom. And I also want to give credit to Buchanan, who, although wasteful at times, did look very good and clearly had a lot of passion in playing for his country.
Croatia, Guardiol.
Absolute rock at the back. Josko Guardiol was absolutely immense this tournament, put himself in the transfer window, and honestly, he's one of my favourite defenders out there, and I do think he's got a great career ahead of him, and he was probably Croatia's best player this tournament, with just securing that backline and even got a goal in the third place playoff, and at one point almost a second goal, which would have been absolutely mental from a centre-back.
Morocco, Soifan Amrabat.
For me, the midfielder of the tournament, Soifan Amrabat, he was an absolute powerhouse in Morocco's miracle run to the semi-final of the World Cup, and he was just, for me, their standout player every single time. Obviously, Ziyech and Hakimi both look good at times with their good link-up, but Amrabat is what held that team together like glue. He helped with defence, and he also got forward and kept the ball moving, allowing Morocco to exploit gaps in the opposition's defence and really help them go on that miraculous semi-final run.
Brazil, Vinicius Jr.
Now, I know lots of people are going to be saying Richarlison or maybe even Neymar, but for me, Vinicius Jr. was the standout. The young star, he's really showing that he is going to be the future of Brazil, and every time he got the ball he looked dangerous, he was electric, his pace is obviously dangerous against fullbacks, and honestly, if Brazil had gone far, he could have been a shout for player of the tournament in my opinion.
Switzerland, Vargas.
Although I was tempted to go for Xherdan Shaqiri for this, he managed to get himself a goal and an assist, because like always, he does turn up for Switzerland at international tournaments. However, I want to shake it up a bit and go for Vargas, because I don't think he got a goal or assist in the end, but every single time he got the ball when I was watching Switzerland, he looked like their best player really. He looked dangerous, he looked like he was trying to go forward and drive, and he also gave Rodriguez, the left back, some good defensive support too. So for me, Switzerland's best player.
Serbia, Mitrovic.
Many people's dark horses for this tournament, Serbia ended up finishing bottom of their group, and for me, I just went for a boring pick. I went for Mitrovic because I didn't really know who else to pick. I don't think any of them really inspired me, and honestly throughout the tournament Serbia were just a bunch of thugs really, and in the end they kind of got what they deserved for playing in such a horrible way and finished bottom, and none of them really are brilliant, but Mitrovic did get a goal, maybe two, so I'll go for him as their best player.
Cameroon, Abubakar.
Cameroon did a lot better than what people expected, and for me that was down to primarily super sub Abubakar, who got a ridiculous scoop goal. He got, I think, another two, maybe one of those was offside, and when he did come on, he honestly looked like Cameroon's best player, just about keeping onside every time somehow, and honestly he did look pretty dangerous up front for Cameroon.
Portugal, Bruno Fernandes.
Bruno Fernandes played for Portugal. He was definitely their best player, although he only got 2 games, I believe. At least only played 2 of the group games. I can't remember if he played the round of 16 or quarter-final games, but when he played those 2 games, he got 2 goals, 2 assists. Was definitely the best player, although I would like to mention João Felix, who looked pretty good every single time he got the ball, and people might say Gonzalo Ramos, but he only got that hat-trick in 1 game without even playing all the others, so he doesn't really qualify for best player for me this time.
South Korea, Cho Gui-sung.
A man who made himself a hero in South Korea after getting a couple goals this tournament. He always looked like a danger from set pieces and had decent link-up and hold-up play the rest of the tournament, and normally this would be an obvious pick for Son, but because he was coming back from an injury, I don't think he was as good as he could have been, and was a bit sloppy at times really.
Ghana, Mohamed Kudus.
The creative spark behind Ghana this World Cup was Mohamed Kudus, the Ajax man, and he looked pretty creative, always getting in little pockets of space and causing problems for the opposition defence, and definitely contributed the most to Ghana's attack, which almost saw them through to the round of 16, and he was definitely one of the players of the group stage in my opinion.
Uruguay, Valverde.
So the last team, and honestly a disappointing team this tournament, quite a few people's dark horses who couldn't even qualify in the end, being beaten to a qualification spot by South Korea. And honestly, the whole Uruguayan team was poor most of the time. Obviously, I think it was Cresto got 2 goals in the last game, but for me, I'm just going to go for probably their best player currently, Federico Valverde, because he's just quality, and if anything good happened for Uruguay, it was because of him. Alright, that wraps up this video. If you enjoyed it, please remember to like, comment and subscribe, and tell me any other opinions of who you think was the best player for each country at the tournament.